Hello, welcome back to the Doctor Kirstin Show. I'm your host, Dr. Kirstin Lauritsen, and today we are starting off a new a new series where I am going to be diving into different conditions, different diseases, different problems that my clients face that come to see me. And we're going to be talking about how just have a different lens on how I see things, and what you can do if you have been someone who has tried a lot of things and just you're still stuck. You don't have what you want. You still feel like there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more to go, and you're just not really sure what else to do. I'm just going to outline a lot of like how I see it. The other thing that I'm going to do too, and the other reason why I'm making this is because I have some clients too where I co-treat, right, with other practitioners, other physicians and doctors, and sometimes the advice can be a little bit conflicting. So I am going to do my best to put as much out there as possible that really gives you some like a platform to stand on, because I really do believe that we have to be advocates for ourselves, unfortunately, but also not unfortunately, right? Like who else is out there to really be and have our best interest at heart? Us, right? As much as I would love to see doctors and the systems like doing everything they can to put you as like the top priority and first and like trying to do everything they can to figure out, what's going on, at the end of the day, like it's up to you. And okay, I also think this is really important too, because from like an authenticity standpoint, like, and from really actually not even authenticity, but from a standpoint of our intuition and taking that gut feeling and knowing what the best thing is for us. How many stories have you heard of someone being like, I went to the doctor, they said that nothing's wrong, and I said, no, 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 like we need to do more testing. And then all of a sudden they find something that's like really significant because they knew, right? We have to get back to listening, listening to that soft inner voice. Sometimes it's super loud, like a super loud gut feeling of like, this is not the place to be. But sometimes what we get is soft and it's quiet. And it's the first thing that like your conscious mind will immediately judge and be like, no, it's not that. But that intuition is really important. And I think this is where um, we we need to be able to decipher between what someone with a lot of experience and who knows more than us, like what they have to say, weighed against or in tandem with what we also think is best for us. So that's the motivation, so to speak, for the next series. We're going to be talking about autoimmune disease. We're going to be talking about gut health. We're going to be talking about again, the immune system. We're going to be talking about the liver and detoxification because people get a little bit confused about that and things we really need to be looking out for there. We're going to talk about the mitochondria for sure because nowadays everybody wants to have more energy. We're going to be talking about hormones. We're just going to take a deep dive into the systems, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to take you on a journey into how I see the whole gamut, the whole shebang, and what I do really like with my clients. So let's start off with the intro. How do we do it, right? One thing that's really important to know is that this is pretty much with anything, but the top 10 causes of death in the United States are literally like the diseases that cause death in the United States are created by or they're made worse by stress. It's interesting. Yes? Yes. It's a completely different way of looking at it. And the system treats the symptom, not the root and the core of where the stress is coming from. And now that is a very, very critical piece that is very, very important to remember and to note when you are trying to tackle any problem that you have in your life. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, hormone imbalances, difficulty losing weight, autoimmune disease, endometriosis, migraines, depression, anxiety. The list goes on and on and on. They are either created by or made worse by stress. What is stress? It is when your body loses the capacity to cope with what's going on in the environment around it. And I find this very interesting too, because this is something that's really important to note is that you might be doing everything. You may have created like the perfect environment. You might have all of the water filters and the air filters, and you might have the best salt and electrolytes. And you might also be eating not only grass-fed, grass-finished beef, but also the wild salmon that comes from Alaska. And you are also taking the most expensive and best supplements. And you are also eating all organic foods that you have grown yourself. Let's see what else. You also drink raw milk from the local dairy that your friend owns, and you go and get it every week. And you are having conversations with your family, and you have the best relationship with your spouse, and you love your job and all of these things, and yet you still are struggling to lose weight, or yet you still have these health things going on that still, no matter what you do, just will not go away. And still have, XYZ problem. Because here's the thing. Stress isn't just about the external environment. It's also about the internal environment. And this right here is why people struggle to heal. If your internal environment doesn't believe that it is safe to create whatever it is that you want, it's not going to go there. This is quite literally the difference between like the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. You're probably hearing a lot more about nervous system regulation and how important it is and regulating your emotions. And I hands down do believe that like nobody heals when they're stressed. You have to increase your capacity. So what this means is that like you may be able to keep your job, and you may be able to have more kids, and you may be able to keep growing your business, or you may be able to be doing any and all of these things, but you have to expand your capacity to hold them to a certain amount that your body doesn't feel like it's constantly over capacity. And I'm telling you, if you are holding on to weight that you are trying to let go of, or if you are struggling to heal your gut, or your immune system is still signaling some sort of threat, like autoimmune disease, it's attacking itself, like folks, it's a problem with capacity in some way, shape, or form, and safety. And that doesn't always mean that like the external environment isn't supportive of that. It might be. You might have quit your job, for all I know, but it's not getting better. Because you never dealt with the internal pieces that are driving the stressors that are creating the health thing or the difficulty, the problem in the first place. People get really stuck on focusing on the very few things that they can do versus all of the other options that are available to them when they're in a more resourced state. Any problem in your life requires a new resource state. I was just thinking today that one of the ways that we tend to look at health and creating health, especially here in the United States, or literally anything. I mean, here now, weight loss, you can take medications to try and help you lose weight. Um, One of the things that we tend to do is we want to have the result that we want without having to actually change. And that's not just like changing jobs or changing the food that we eat, although a lot of people struggle to change the foods that they eat because they're very attached to them, because they're also in part a coping mechanism. But it's not just about it's not just about that. It's not just about the alcohol or the foods that we eat. It's not just about any of those things that we have to change. It's also about how we have to change. So what medications do is they help you address the symptoms without you actually having to change. You know what? I don't think I've ever said it more clearly than that. You have to change. There is a journey that begins. And, on a previous episode, I said one of the things I became very obsessed with when I got into what I do now is why certain people get results and others don't. And what I really think is one of the reasons why some people do actually heal and other people sometimes don't, is because that either one, they're actually just not ready to change, or two, and this one might be a little hard to hear, they don't want what they want enough to be willing to sustain and go through the hard things that they're going to have to do in order to get there. Like maybe you're going to have to go gluten free for a while. Maybe you're also going to have to like come up close and personal with the patterns, the beliefs, the letting go of the like emotions, and like going through the journey where sometimes your world gets flipped upside down and it gets painful and it gets worse before it gets better. I know that's not the most motivating thing to hear, but folks, like this is reality. This is reality of getting what you want. And this, I'm speaking from the heart here. I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from watching people who, some people are just like, they just refuse to accept that what their current reality is going to be the thing for their long term. Those people do reach a sense of acceptance of where they're at, but they also hold strongly to the vision of where they want to go. And they work on releasing the beliefs and the patterns and the emotions and they build capacity. Guys, I see this a lot. I see this, I see people who are in therapy, and they're not increasing their capacity. They're focused a lot on what they don't want. And even times they come to a certain level of acceptance with where they're at, but it doesn't help them change their capacity. It doesn't move them from the sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state. It doesn't help move them from where they're stuck to focusing on where they want to go, to creating what you want. It does create a certain level of acceptance for sure, of the stories, of the things, of the traumas, of the things you went through. But people come to me after years of therapy, and in one visit, they're more capable and more focused on what they want We move the needle so much that they're just in awe of how much we did and of what changed. What you do is really important, right? Building the foundation, that must be there. If we're talking about health, like you've got to have the right nutrition. We have to decrease inflammation. We need to support your gut. You need to be sleeping. You need to have, exercise and proper movement, right? Like all of these foundational pieces are super important. We can't neglect those. And I do also think this is why some people get certain places faster than others. Like when I got into this specific work where we were adding in the internal subconscious pieces on top of the foundation that I had a master's and a doctorate by that point. I've been at working on my health for over a decade. I had a huge foundational lead, right? So when we added this piece on top of it, it took me May to December. By December, I no longer had painful periods a couple years ago. And I had also, by the way, been like doing a lot of like emotional processing and things like that. Just I think that what I do is different in the sense that I think it does it at a much different level. Anyway, but that's really important, right? Is that the foundation that you might be someone who has to learn all of those pieces. So, the journey of where you're going to go, like let's manage our expectations. Can it be fast? Absolutely. But, the how much you're going to have to learn, how much you might have to change, might be a lot, right? Really, really, really important that we think about this in the terms of what kind of journey are we about to embark on. And here's the thing, I think there's a naivete that's like actually really important because if we actually knew how much work it was going to be and how much we would have to grow and all that was going to happen and entail, like I'm not sure we would do it actually. I think this is a big thing with like having kids. Like if we knew how hard it was going to be or like how much we were going to get faced with all of our bull, right? All of our mirrored back to us, like all of the things that we uh don't like about ourselves. Patterns we learned that we don't like, that we learned from our parents, right? Like if we really knew what that was going to be like, I'm not sure that many people would become parents. But then at the same time, like you also, if you don't become a parent, you also miss out on like the coolest things. Like watching your kids start picking up food and taking it from you and watching them walk and watching them dance and watching them learn how to walk backwards, right? Like and watching them, all of the things that like the joys of parenting, like you miss out. And I think that's also the same thing, like health journeys. Like, yeah, we can take the medications and we can not really change. We can keep trying to supplement it. We can keep trying to find all of these other solutions for weight loss and all of these things that we want. But ultimately, where it's really going to come down to is learning and shifting and growing on the internal level because it all starts with your internal representations, your mind models, the internal wiring, your body, beliefs, nervous system, the literal wiring of your brain. And all of this is connected to your energy. It's connected to your identity. It's connected to your physical body. It's connected to your emotions. Like literally, most problems that people have are at the root of some sort of stored negative emotions or a lack of emotional control, being able to regulate your emotions, having your nervous system feel safe pretty much like the reason why what I do works is because when you release those negative emotions and where they're stored in the body, you increase your capacity. You increase your capacity for stress. You literally create space. You create space in the body. You create space in the mind. That thing that goes on over and over and over again in your head, it's just like constantly, constantly going. The mental stories, the you can't ever get your mind to stop. The emotional stress that you feel where you constantly feel you're on edge and that you're at capacity, right? You're overwhelmed, you're burned out. Create space. You know what it feels like when you like clear out a bedroom or a space or a closet. And not only have you edited things out, but then all of it gets organized and you literally look in there and it's like a freaking breath of fresh air. Now imagine that for your body, your mental space, and your emotional space, and like your soul, like your energy, the energy that you have. Like imagine what that feels like, that breath of fresh air. One of my absolute favorite things that I get to hear from clients when we work with people is they will often say like when we're either in the exercise or when they're just like they're out of it, they'll be like, I feel like I can breathe. Like I feel like the heaviest weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Like I feel lighter. And I love it because you can just watch as their body is literally taking the energy that they have been wasting on maintaining all of these things going on in the background, the stored negative emotions, the beliefs, these stories about how they are not worthy or capable of actually creating what they want. You are over and over at capacity, over giving, never receiving, getting enough for yourself. All of these things are wasting energy. And what I get to see is when people take that energy and then it starts actually being shifted to what you want. The relief that people get is incredible. When they actually finally make that shift, sometimes this takes a while in coaching, but you start to see them finally round that corner to like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm not going to. And when that happens, people just take right off. It's the coolest thing. The thing is that your internal world, right? The internal wiring, your mind model, your beliefs, that internal representation, that helps the external work do its thing. It helps create the external work world, whatever you want to call it, the health you want to see, how you want to be as a parent, how you want to show up, and the results you want to get in your business as an entrepreneur. It's working on that internal space that expands your capacity. And you're only going to create as much as your inner world says that it's safe to go, to create. So whether that's weight loss, like literally feeling safe enough to let that protective layer go, whether it's healing the gut, so boundaries, like actually holding and setting good boundaries so that your body feels safe to do it. Because guess what? If you can't hold safe boundaries and actually show your nervous system and your brain that you're not going to keep saying yes to things that you actually don't want to do, if you can't say no, then what is it going to do? It's not going to let you heal, because if you keep saying yes to things and you keep doing more and more and more, we're going to continue to have the same problem. You're not going to be able to heal. So you have to fix those things in order for the body to finally be like, okay, cool, we can do this now. Healing the gut, intestinal permeability. It's a boundary, right? A boundary between the inner world and the external world. Repairing the immune system, same thing. Literally, your immune system in autoimmune disease is signaling to your body that something is a threat, that self is a threat. Guys, like this is where, folks, this is where what this ultimately comes down to. You have to figure out at the root, what is the story that your brain is telling yourself and your body to create in the external world? Why is it telling your body to continue gaining weight? Why is it telling your body to keep holding on to weight? What does it need in order to finally feel safe to let go? And are we there yet? Do we still have a lot more to go? Do we still have a lot more to do? If your mental and emotional load are overwhelmed, like the load that you're carrying, if your mental and emotional world are so bogged down, if they are over capacity, that they can no longer cope, that you are overwhelmed, that you are burned out, that you are over capacity, your subconscious is literally going to be saying that it is unsafe to expand and to grow and to get what you want. Whether it's wanting to lose 10, 20, 50, 100 pounds, whether it's wanting to have a healthy thyroid, whether it's wanting to have a healthy GI tract, whether it's wanting to have healthy periods or enough energy so you don't have red S anymore, if you want to have lower inflammation and reduce your risk of injury, you want to perform at the levels you want to perform at, you want to heal your immune system and have a healthy immune system, whatever it is, you can literally do all of the things. You can get all of the panels, the functional medicine, like functional panels. You can take the supplements. You can be doing all the protocols. You can be doing the like nutrition stuff, the elimination diet, paleo, autoimmune, like I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do. There's a long list. Low FODMAP, with SIBO and all that jazz. But if meanwhile you are over capacity, maybe, maybe you do the new thing, you get the gut panel. Maybe are looking at and you're working on, you just did like a belief clearing and you are going to therapy and you're trying to do all of the things, but you're getting frustrated because you're not seeing results. And then you look back and you realize that you had zero, you have had in the past zero capacity to actually do more. And your coping mechanisms are basically just fueling the problem. I see this so often, even with people who are in therapy, right? You only create in your external world the result that your internal world feels safe to create. Folks, your brain and your body are so freaking smart. Okay. They are literally wired to protect you. In school, this was like one of my favorite things in chiropractic school because every once in a while we would be looking at something that the body was doing and we'd be like, oh, it's doing the smart, dumb thing. Like the body is super smart, but what it is literally designed to do, your brain is wired to protect you, plain and simple. Between 0 and 8 years old, you don't have a filter. So you pretty much are living in like a hypnotic state. You don't have a filter. So everything that you do, everything that you see, everything that you experience, everything that you witness, you don't have a way of filtering it and knowing what it might mean or what it might not mean. So you literally take it as truth or reality. And that is how we create the beliefs, we store the negative emotions. Like these are the things that we end up operating off of. It could be positive and it also could be limiting or negative. And then from there, then once that's solidified, all that the brain does from then on is it compares what's happening in the present time to the past time, and it starts to collect evidence that reaffirms the beliefs that you learned when you were a kid. That is it. Plain and simple. Your brain is entirely designed to help you survive. The problem that you have, that you want to work on, that you want to fix, that you want to improve, is because your brain is telling your body to do something, and that's it. Your brain is telling your body to do something. because your brain starts everything. In my new breakthrough deep dive series, like what we are doing is we're not only increasing your capacity. We do this actually inside of all of my programs, whether you're in the Worthy Workshop or you go into the Functional Motherhood program, which doors will be opening up soon for the next round. Or whether you are coming to me for private coaching. Like inside of this new process, really, that I have, the biggest conversation that we have is aligning your internal world for creating what you want in the external world. Foundationally, like a lot of those things are all going to be really important, but I find that when your mind is focused on what you want, like the nutrition things come way easier. Guys, I've been doing this for a really, really long time, and I've been coaching people and working with people on changing their habits, on implementing protocols, on nutrition, on all of these things. And the thing is that the people who are actually successful at making the changes that they need to have some form of self-belief that not only can they do it, but their mind is focused on what they want. They know they can do it and they do it. It's really that simple. So, what I've realized is that people need to start here. You need to start with aligning, putting a spotlight on what you want to create first, so that then your brain knows, like, oh, okay, well, we're going to make these, even some of these very small micro decisions add up when you say no to that thing that maybe in the past you would have said yes to. When you say, like, oh, I'm not going to choose the cookies this time. You know what? Instead, I am kind of hungry. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose some slices of turkey, or I'm going to peel off some pieces of chicken. I'm going to get some really good protein, or I'm going to have a protein shake before bed. And then tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I eat a little bit more towards the beginning of the day. And lo and behold, you get to the evening and your snacking isn't there, folks. These micro decisions over time create big results, but they don't just happen. The belief system, what you tell your brain to do and focus on, that is what precedes the things that you do, and that is how you get a different result. One of the biggest things that you can do is start identifying what your beliefs are. And I find this really helpful when you start recognizing what your coping mechanisms are. Like, what do you use to help you regulate? What do you use to help you change states? So, if you're in a negative state, what helps you create a positive one? These are really, really important. What do you numb out? Do you go to scroll on your phone? Do you go and get a bottle of wine or a glass of wine? Do you go for chips and cookies? Um, what do you do? Go for a run, even. I'm not necessarily saying that movement is bad and that it doesn't help you process, but I am saying that sometimes we can use exercise as a coping mechanism when really we could learn some different tools for helping us to be able to cope and be able to change states uh, in our mind. Because what happens if you are somewhere where you can't go exercise? Now what? Now what's available to you? There's a like if your kids are running around and they're not listening and you are like at your wits' end, you can't go for a run in that moment. You have to take care of the kids. So what do you usually do? You probably yell, potentially, right? To like offload. Or maybe you just go grab the wine, or maybe you numb out and you grab your phone. I don't know. What do you do? Coping mechanisms. Be aware of where you are reaching for those things, what sort of thoughts are preceding that, and what are the beliefs, what are the spirals, what does it mean about you when those things start up? I'm a bad parent, right? Or I'm just I'm just so done with today. I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted. Nobody supports me. I'm alone. I don't have support. Where can we focus on fulfillment? Where can we focus on nourishment? Where can we focus on shifting those states without needing the coping mechanisms? One thing that you can do is, and this I find this really, really helpful, is learn how to get into your body. So one of the things in my hormone alchemy workshop is I show you at the end how to do a somatic body experience where you land back into your body. If you find yourself worrying a lot, if you find yourself anxious a lot, if you are constantly feeling the need, the motivation to like go and to do and to rush and to like get things done, and the way that you feel good about yourself is because you had a really freaking awesome day where you got so much done and you achieved so much and you accomplished everything, like, oof, taking some space to get into your body and be present in the present moment will do a lot for you. Now, some people, I will give this as a caveat, if your body hurts, if it's in pain, if it doesn't feel good, this is actually one space where we need to work on finding safety first, because getting into your body may actually feel unsafe. You're dissociated. You are removed. You're literally like floating up and outside of your body. It's not safe to be in your body. The body does that. The brain does that to create safety. And people who have experienced bullying, abuse, emotional, mental, physical, all kinds, who have experienced trauma, oftentimes get really good at dissociating because it's a survival mechanism that creates safety. So, one of the things that you can do is what I call CPR. Curiosity. What is causing the overstimulation? What do you do? What do you say to yourself? What triggers these feelings? Get curious. Pay attention to the stories that are going on in your mind and how they begin. Get curious. Did you know that curiosity is the solution for resistance? Whatever you're resisting in your life, when you get curious, it allows you to move through and past that resistance. It's really powerful. The next in CPR is pause. Pausing is by far one of the most powerful things you can learn to do. Like, for example, let's say your kids aren't listening and you are about to yell. Okay, so CPR, curiosity. What's the thought that comes to mind? Well, my kids aren't listening. Okay, so this is part of the trigger. But maybe there are times where your kids don't listen, but you don't yell. What is it about this time that makes you want to yell? Is it an emotion? Is it a fear of being late? Because most likely there's like some sort of pattern that you learned either from your childhood or along the way of how you needed to be that is firing off in that moment. So one thing could be expectations of like, okay, I'll tell a story. Okay. So, all right, this is gonna really, really humanize me. If you- Okay, so I was once fired from a babysitting job because I got frustrated with the little girl because it was like every single time that I babysat them, it was a constant struggle to get them to go to bed. Like constantly fighting, constantly like not like fighting, like yelling. It was just it was like one thing after the other, like wanting to read a book and then being like, "Oh no, but I'm hungry," even though, all of the things, right? And it was just constant delay. And at the time I didn't have these tools. I was like I was young, like young. And at one point I was just feeling the stress of, and I know for me, like I was feeling, and also I will say this, they were also moving, so they were exceptionally different that night because they were also experiencing stress. And um post my like this whole thing, I had conversations with both of them about how they felt about moving. Um, but I also did say to one of the kids, like, you need to pick a frickin' cereal because, like, we gotta get you to bed. And I was feeling the stress of not wanting to do something wrong and disappoint the parents and not have their kids in bed by the time they got home. That was an internal story, an internal pressure that I was putting on myself, that I would have done something wrong and not done my job well if they had not been in bed, by the time the parents got home. Did I, repair? Yes, I did. Even though at the time I didn't know what I was doing. And did I also get fired? Yes, I did. Uh, Justified, I don't know. That's not really the point of the story. But the point is, though, is that the we do things because of stories for ourselves. Okay. So pausing can be extremely helpful. Pausing essentially helps us to be able to take a break, take a minute before we say something that maybe we don't mean, or before we yell, or before we lose it. And it allows us to get curious, like, why is this particular pattern happening? Why is this particular thing, coming up for me? what what is it potentially tied to, like not wanting to be late, like it's bad when people are late, or it's disrespectful when we're late, right? Like all of these things somewhat based on how other people are going to perceive us and judge us. But these things can be really helpful, because I'm not saying that you necessarily then decide that you never have to be on time. But what I am saying is that maybe because we know that this is a pattern, we make sure that we build in a little more time. Or if things just happened and we're going to end up being late, it's not like we're always late. It's just that at this time, hey, we're going to be late. We can send off a text message, we can give a call like, hey, we're going to be late. You know? Um, that's what curiosity and that's what pausing does for us. And then CPR, the last one, is called rest. But this could be taking a deep breath, like 5 in, 5 out, taking a deep breath in, counting to 5, taking a deep breath out, again, counting to 5. Maybe it's movement. Maybe you just need to shake it out and you're just teaching your kids to shake it out too, and everybody's just going to shake it out. Maybe then they'll actually put their shoes on. Maybe it's gargling water. Maybe it's, washing your hands under some water and just taking a moment. Kids aren't putting their shoes on. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe what you just need to do is just wash your hands under some water. Pay attention to how the water feels on your hands. Take a deep breath, recenter, ground yourself a bit, and then go back. CPR. I think that's a pretty good one. What do you think? I think that's pretty good. Okay, so lastly, um, the other thing that we want to be aware of, right? So when we're talking about beliefs, is things like old beliefs of I need to do more in order to get what I want. I need to do more. If I don't have the results that I want, then I need to do something else. Like I need to either add more on or, whatever it is. What you could try on instead is something along the lines of like, I can create whatever it is that you want in the positive by working smarter. And if you want, you could add in overdoing more. So I can create healthy periods by working smarter, over doing more, over adding more onto my plate. Another thing that you might be able to try on is I am no longer doing all of this by myself. I am no longer martyring myself and giving and giving and giving and never receiving. I'm never doing something for you. Never asking for the time or the support to go do something for you. I am no longer open for burning myself out. Sometimes there are things that you do need to do. There are some things that you do need to change. But in most cases, I find you don't need to do more. But that's partially because I talk to a lot of people who are already doing a lot of things, right? They've already made the diet change, nutrition changes. Some of them are eating cleaner than I do. Okay. Like, and I've been there. But also like taking the supplements and they are also, training or exercising the hour a day. And then they're also getting in, 10,000 steps. Like they're doing the things. Yes. Yes. They're sleeping well. All of that. But in those cases, like you don't in those cases most of the time you do not need to do more. The foundation is already there. What you actually need to look at is what can shift by working smarter that leverages what you're already doing and makes it work even better for you. And I will tell you, it comes from telling your brain what you want it to focus on creating more of. Sometimes people are coming from families, from lineage, although I would say that most of like the chronic health conditions started within probably the last one or two generations. So it's probably not going to be that long. But sometimes, and I actually see this frequently with some clients that are, in a world of trying to heal. And, the journey to getting healthy can sometimes there can be a belief that it's going to be lonely and that it's going to be stressful and that no one from your family is going to get it. If that's you, if you I can completely relate. When I said I wanted to go to be a doctor of chiropractic, I received a big manila folder of editorial and opinion pieces on how chiropractors are quacks from family. That was a super fun one to receive in your 20s when you don't necessarily have a lot of these tools. Um, and I was sat down and talked about like why I wasn't going to be a medical doctor. Now, I will say this, at the time, I didn't actually believe that I was capable of becoming a medical doctor. So, There's that. And I will say that from their lens, they believed in me enough, right? They believed in the fact that like I could be or do whatever I wanted and that I was smart enough or that I could do and I could become a medical doctor. On the flip side of going to chiropractic school, like now I real and also getting my master's in human nutrition and functional medicine, like I could have gone to medical school. Okay. I could have been an MD. I could have done it. But the fact is that the reason for the story is that the journey uh, to getting where I am today can sometimes feel lonely. It doesn't have to, but I'm not gonna slough over the fact that like for a lot of people, like your social circles, your current social circles, um, maybe do a lot of have a lot of habits and have a lot of things that revolve around stuff that is preventing you from getting what you want. I had a client, or a potential client. I didn't actually end up working with them, but I had a potential client who said that they didn't want to work together until after their July trip because they were going on a trip with their friends, and one of the things that they needed to do was quit smoking, but all of their friends smoke. So they didn't want to start working until after that trip. This is a good example, guys, of like why people don't always get what they want. Because they maintain, sometimes like your friends, like what you do is you go out and you drink or you go out to eat and you end up getting fried food and pizza and like things that um, are just increasing inflammation in your body. So where some of these habits, these things can be coming from isn't actually from the fact that like you want those foods or you want to drink or you want any of those things. It's actually coming from the fact that you don't want to be lonely. And that if you don't go do those things, then you're not going to have friends. And that the people around you are going to get upset with you because they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand. So instead, So instead, what if we tried on something different? Like, I am doing something that's new and supportive for me. It's safe for me to set a new standard of health for myself, for my family, maybe even for your lineage or generations before you. I'm changing and healing my lineage. I am creating generational health. Do you know how many conditions and diseases like breast cancer and all of those things are passed down? It is a genetic thing, but guys, most of the time, they're not just genetics that are the reason why they get passed down. It's because the habits, the ways of thinking, the patterns, the ways of eating, the ways of living get passed down. And so they just repeat and repeat and repeat until somebody finally says, I'm going to approach this differently. I am creating generational health. I have what it takes. At the root of most problems that people struggle with, it's either not believing that you are worthy and deserving of having what you want, or not believing that you are capable. I can't. I don't have what it takes. It's the old way of thinking, the new way of thinking. I am capable. I have what it takes. What if instead, what if you stopped chasing and what you want? What if you stopped trying to run away from the things that you're afraid of, the things that you don't want? And what if instead you focused on already feeling how having what you want will feel? When you write down what you want, there's a reason why you want it. You want to feel a certain way. And one of the ways to reverse that and actually help your brain focus on what you want is to feel, is to create the image, to create the feeling that you already have what you want and remind yourself of that every day, multiple times a day. So not only do I want, let me see, like I do this for myself in other ways. Let me see if I can put like a health one. So I am, I have a healthy period. Okay. Let's say we do that. So I have a healthy period. And what that's going to make me feel is relieved. I'm trying to think of this actually, like how would I actually feel? Because I like now that I have it, I have to actually think about like what is it? Um, another thing, like I feel validated that like what I said I wanted to do was possible and I actually did it. I feel like I'm living proof. Um, the opposite of like being a fraud, right? So like I have confidence. It actually improved my worth and my self-esteem and my confidence. Um, right? So like those things that I feel now because I actually created what I wanted. Like I don't have endometriosis anymore. I have pain-free periods. Um, of healthy periods. That's how I wanted to feel. I wanted to also feel like I had a normal period because it meant to me that, like, oh, I was doing the things that means I'm healthy and I want to be healthy and I want to be healthy for the long term. Like, for me, being 90 and being one of those women who's like super in in shape and fit and wise and, inspiring people to keep doing the things and like building the muscle mass and having healthy hormones and a healthy bones and like all of those things like I that's something that I really have always wanted, but like I'm not there yet, right? So like what is it that I can access now? And part of it was um knowing that I had been able to end those cycles of inflammation that were telling my immune system to continue creating inflammation in my pelvis that led to endometriosis and the expression of pain with periods. So good. Part of this really comes down to making sure that your values and your identity are in alignment with what you want. So, health needs to be one of your values. If you want to create a healthy life, it needs to be somewhere close to the top. You're also eventually, just like I talked about in the beginning, like you're going to need to grow, you're going to need to change. Like you are going to need to adopt the identity of someone who is healthy, which means you're going to start doing things that healthy people do. It means you're going to have to start adopting ways of thinking that healthy people do, how they think, right? This will literally be applied across all things in life. And remember when I talked about the CPR of getting curious? You can start getting curious about what other people do, what they think, how their lens, like their filter, like how they see things, what they say. You can start paying attention to those things. You can start adopting them. You can start thinking that way. Like I already gave you like a bunch of different ways, right? I'm doing something that's new and supportive for me. I can create what I want by working smarter, not harder. I can, um, it's safe for me to set a new standard of health. I'm changing the, health and healing I'm healing my lineage. I am creating generational health. I have what it takes. I am capable. I am worthy. I have what it takes, right? All of these things are ways of thinking. Affirmations, they are ways of thinking. But the affirmations need to be backed up by believability. They need to be in alignment with an identity that then is in alignment with what you want to create, because you can continue saying affirmations all day long, and eventually you'll get there because the brain does eventually start thinking differently. But holy smokes, can that take a long time? If you can make this a whole lot faster by leveraging the emotional charge behind it and helping to actually shift and create change in the body by letting go of those emotions that are tied to it, and then creating a new learning and creating new wiring. Like literally, there's certain laws, but there's something called Hebb's law, which essentially means that the neurons that fire together wire together, and they become stronger. So all of these neurons in these circuits, like we have learned these patterns, right? We have thought them over and over and over and over again. Literally, the neurons fire in these same circuits, and they fire and they wire together. So what do we do when you change the neurons? This is neuroplasticity. This is brain change at its finest. When you leverage changing the brain and you start getting the neurons to fire differently, you get a different result. Like, this is it. Okay. Um, it's like learning the piano or any sort of instrument. Like you learn like the few things, and when you first start learning something, it's pretty like choppy. It's, kind of disjointed, and maybe you make a lot of mistakes. But over time, as you keep practicing it over and over and over again, those neurons fire in that pattern over and over and over again. And then eventually, the result that you get is this beautiful piece. And depending on how long and how many times you play it, you might be like me and like, t I don't even know how many years later, 10, 13, 14 years later, some pieces, some of those neurons are still there. And I can play pieces almost for memory, or like if I pull up, I've still got the pattern, because those patterns, those circuits, those neurons fired together over and over and over and over again. This is how we leverage your brain for progress and getting results. You have to do this to do anything that you want to create in your life. And what I'm saying is that we can just make those things kind of happen a little bit faster by focusing our attention on helping the brain do that. Because any time that you decide, like, hey, I'm going to do this, and you put money into it and you say, like, okay, I am going to change, like, I'm going to sign up to work with Dr. K, or like, I'm going to sign up to do this thing. You know what the body does, or the brain does? It says, oh, you're serious. You actually want to do this thing. Okay, well, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to believe that, this is something you can do. Oh, yeah. You know how you believe that you like aren't good enough? Well, here's something that's going to happen in your life, and now you're going to have to be faced with that. Do you actually still show up? Do you actually show up for your calls? Or do you decide that you're going to cancel? Do you actually show up to the gym, or do you just ghost? Because, oh man, I don't have time. Do you not have time? Or do you just believe that you don't have time? Or is it that you are saying that you don't have time, and therefore it's actually coming from the fact that you actually don't believe that you're capable of achieving what you want? You don't believe you're capable of actually going to the gym, doing the exercise, doing the things, and creating what you want. That's just one pattern. It can, like, I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the capacity, or I don't know if it'll work for me. These are just things that you think that the brain will give you, that it's basically saying, like, hey, if you actually are saying what you want is this, like, then you're going to have to start thinking differently. And here are all the areas in which this is coming up. that you're going to have to look at before you actually start getting what you want. This used to happen a lot when I was working with athletes. They would come in and they'd say, "Okay, like this is what I want. I want to get better at nutrition. I want to do all of these things." And then they would like get an injury or then they would get sick. They'd be like, "Well, what the heck, man? Like I've been working and I've been doing all of these things." And I'd be like, "Well, what comes up for you when you get injured? Or what happened in your life at that time that when you got injured or when you got sick?" And sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, well, like this thing was happening, and it's this consistent pattern that, my spouse and I have, and I got really, really frustrated, and then I went out for a run and I got injured." Folks, what did you talk about? What is that pattern? Or we talked about the Achilles injury, right? Or people will get sick and I'll say, "Okay, well, what does this mean?" And they'll say something along the lines of like, "Well, I don't actually believe that I can be an athlete. I'll never be able to do it." What's it come down to? Do you believe that you deserve it, that you're worthy, or that you're capable? Right? When you believe and when you tell your brain that it is safe for you to do this thing, when we build in the space and the capacity for you to actually be able to feel safe and to have resources and to be able to do the thing, you create the thing that you want. Thank you so much for listening, for hanging out with me today. If you found this helpful, I would love for you if there was something that really landed, if there was something that really was like, "Oh my gosh, never thought of it that way." Come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to have a chat with you and hear about it. Just really, affirms and lets me know that like what I'm sharing is really, really helpful for the people that are listening, for you guys, and watching. So just let me know if there was something in particular that was really, really great. And then also, if you are interested in any of the programs that I mentioned here today, they'll be listed down below in the show notes. And it's really helpful if you like, if you subscribe, if you write a review, and if you share this out like on your social media or share it with a friend or family member that think could really benefit from these episodes. It really, really helps to get this out to more people, which really helps me. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you for the next episode. Take care.